this is just the way things are. I don't know what world they're living in, but it's certainly not the one that I'm living in. We're in a place right now, and I say this to young people all the time who are kind of trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives. But people are literally creating careers from making stuff up. Like, for example, creating memes. What's a meme? How long's a meme been a thing? And I know that it actually has roots in linguistics and philosophical stuff, but in terms of, those little picture things that have the words on them that mean something, right? So if that's something that you do or would do somehow related to a career, that's a whole new thing, something that never existed before. And this is something that's happening at a very, very rapid rate. I'm thinking about this because my attention was drawn to an article that showed up in some magazine about how we as a species are very bad at assessing risk because there's a century of data that supports this. Right now, a century goes back to 1920. And for me as an old guy, that doesn't seem like that long ago, because it's not. And so this idea that this is this old knowledge that proves the fact that we're not good at assessing risk makes me go, well, that's actually not very long ago. And even, if you think about psychology and therapy and all these things completely, we're talking about 400 years. This is not a long time, people. And so if we're going to base what we actually are as a species on knowledge that's that new, I think that's a pretty bad idea. Because ultimately, this notion that we're not good at evaluating risk never asked the question, what kind of risk were we trying to evaluate? And ultimately, the kind of risk that we were trying to evaluate was new, just like the one we're trying to evaluate now. And so what we're not good at is dealing with situations that are kind of huge and brand new and overwhelming, which is what's happening now. And one of the things that also is not spoken about is that the not good at that I'm referring to has only to do with individuals. Because prior to 400 or 500, the time frame is not particularly important, but we are as a species that does really well in collaboration. And so, yes, if you put me in a room and say, you have to make a choice about which door you should go through, I may or may not get it right. But if you put me in a room with a bunch of other people and we're in community and we're interacting in a way that we're comfortable with each other and work well together, we're going to be able to figure that out because we're doing it together. And so one of the things that happens when we're in this position of kind of being told that that's just the way things are is that you have to go out and figure this out for yourself, is a story that's supported by that. Well, actually, you can if you want to, but it's really not the way that things are. It's the way that things have become. And for communities to come together right here, right now, local communities, because, I keep talking about this. It's really not, I really don't have any issue. I'm not interested in talking about the administration or any of that stuff, because that's like big, far away from me stuff. Well, actually, not so much this weekend, but anyway, it's a long story. Living here in Maine, the idea that local communities and people, family groups, our social bubbles, right? Family groups, friend groups, larger groups, community groups, that we can solve problems when we take back the power to actually start doing that, because we're the ones who actually know what our needs are. It's not about subverting power from some large organization. I don't care about that. It's about so if you live in Kittery, Maine, which is where I am, what exactly do you need? Because it's different than what people need in Waltham, Massachusetts. Completely different. And if one solution is being prescribed for everybody that's the same, it's not going to work because we're not in the same places. And there's nobody who can actually answer those questions for us but us. And so here we are, where we are, making the choices that we're making determinations that we're making based on where we are. And if we collaborate together, we can actually come up with solutions that would be fabulous. So something to ponder, just this idea that that the notion that things are the way they are is really based on a fallacy. Things aren't the way they are. Things are changing all the time. All kinds of possibilities come up all the time. And that ultimately we're not good at assessing risk. Well, that's actually not true either. We are really good at assessing risk as a group. We're really good at assessing risk as a community, not a group. Groups are arbitrary, and generally the group stuff that you hear about in research is about arbitrary groups. It's never about this community that's been together for, for 200 years. This has been a community of working together and solving problems and figuring things out. We don't ask them questions. We take random people and put them together in a room and say, you guys got to figure this out. They have no idea who each other is, and so on and so forth. But anyway, so yeah. So there's a lot of mythology that unfortunately comes from my work that really doesn't particularly well describe what we're capable of and who we are. And so yeah, but one of the big things that comes from that is that that's just the way things are. That's just the way we are. So I just encourage you to kind of ask questions into those ideas. I'm not suggesting you throw that all out, but just think about it and maybe where it comes from and maybe what its intentions are, and perhaps what sort of consequences would be derived from falling down that kind of trajectory. So something to think about for today, and I will see you guys tomorrow for Back to Basics Sunday.